On episode 6 of the PCT podcast, we are joined by David Tuck, who is a UEFA B licensed coach who also holds the FA Youth Award. David is a serving member of the British Army, coming towards the end of an incredible 22-year career. David speaks to us about transferable skills from the military to coaching and how he has managed two challenging career paths. Don't forget to subscribe, and you can find our episodes on our YouTube channel, with previous episodes available on iTunes, Google and Spotify. Good evening, Dave. Thank you for joining us on the PCT podcast today. How are you during this lockdown and strange times?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Getting there, keeping busy, looking for people to speak to, and as I say, hopefully chew the fat about all things football and coaching and life in general, mate. What are you doing to keep yourself busy?
So even though I'm at home in Stafford, life still goes on in the military. So daily checking my emails, checking my WhatsApp, checking in with all my instructors to make sure that they're all good, that they're keeping fit and active, and they're doing some professional and personal development. Myself, I'm out doing fitness a couple of times a day, whether it be on the balcony or going out for a run. Like yourself, talking football, trying to get a few online courses done, a little bit of myself, personal and professional development.
Good stuff. You mentioned there that obviously you're just checking in on your instructors and making sure they're still developing. Can you just give us a little bit of a background information for the listeners of what your current role is and what it is you do?
Yes, so I'm the squadron sergeant major. I'm the senior soldier for the squadron back at the Army Training Centre in Purbright. And me and my guys are charged with teaching, testing and training the future of the British Army. So anybody that wants to join the British Army comes to Purbright for 14 weeks, gets put through the paces so that we can churn them out to be trained soldiers, and hopefully they'll go on to have a long and prosperous career.
Sounds like a very challenging yet rewarding role. How far deep are you into your military career at the minute?
So I've done just over 20 years. I've been at phase 1 training twice, been at phase 2 training where they do their trade training. Basically for us it's communications. Okay. And now I'm coming towards the end of a military career and looking forward to seeing what I can do next.
It's interesting there that 20 years in one career is quite an achievement in today's sort of society. How did it come about joining the army then? And at what age did you decide this is the career I want?
So a bit funny, to be honest. So my dad was in the military. I was born into the military. He was based overseas. And then we moved around Europe. My brother was born 2 years after me. Again, continued to move around. Dad did 20 years in the military and left in 1995. I was just going into year 9. So my quite critical years of school and doing my GCSEs, and I left in what would have been May 1998. Always wanted to be a policeman. Fancied being a traffic policeman where I'd get the opportunity to test the limits of a Volvo T5 up and down the motorway. But sadly, that never really came to fruition. So gave college a go, didn't really enjoy it. So that didn't last very long. Worked on the market, tried to regain myself and see what I was going to do. And then at 17 and 11 months old, I decided that I would join the British Army. And nearly 21 years later, here we are.
I suppose you could say that's a bit of a drastic career change, going from college and working on the markets to, joining up and having a career in the military. Just talk us through sort of what was the drive behind
that? To be honest, I don't really know. I just thought that I wasn't really a troublemaker. I didn't really get into much trouble. I wasn't concerned that it was either join the army or go to jail, so to speak. It was an opportunity to try something, to do something, and just see how we got on. I did sign up for a full 22-year career, but we do so many years, and then if it's not for us, we can transition into another path. But actually, I really, really enjoyed it. Got to do a lot of things, been to a lot of places, seen a lot of things, and yeah, that's why I'm still here.
You mentioned there, obviously, you've worked in a phase 2 sort of training establishment where they gain a trade. What is your trade with the forces, and again, what was the thinking behind the career path you took in that trade?
So originally, because of my wanting to be a policeman, I thought about joining the Royal Military Police. Okay. Sadly, that never really came about. And having spoken to my mum and dad, who were both serving, dad was in the Royal Corps of Signals, so he was working with communications. It was, if I joined the British Army, I would need to do something that gave me a trade. So we had a look at it. Dad was a driver lineman by trade, so he got his driving qualifications, but I went to be a communication systems operator, which effectively gave me my driving qualifications, but then also allowed me to work with the communications, with radios, mobile telephones, satellite communications, and that has given me a platform that when I do leave in a couple of years' time, if my chosen career or aspirations of being a football coach doesn't come to fruition, then at least I can fall back on a trade and then build my way up through the coaching pathway, so to speak.
You mentioned there, obviously, you're coming towards the end of a 22-year military career. What have been the highlights of that career to date, would you say?
There's been quite a few, to be honest. The military are very, very active. We're very sports focused, so I've had the opportunity to go and play sport, whether that be football with every unit that I've been to, skiing in Germany and Austria, sailing in Denmark, and bobsleigh in Norway and Austria, which I was quite good at. Went for a Great Britain trial, but as you can see by my noodle arms, I wasn't quite strong enough to push the bob on the ice. But some great experiences doing sport, and then travelled the world. Been on exercise in Canada, Cyprus, been to Afghanistan, southern Turkey, to name but a few places. And then obviously you've got the camaraderie, the people that you meet, they're friends for life. You work with them day in, day out. And as I say, you meet some lifelong friends. So regardless of coming to an end at 22 years, we'll be able to move forward. And, you know, in 22 years' time, we'll still have these memories. We'll still get to visit some places. We'll have reunions, and then we'll catch up with all our old friends. So
I'd say it's certainly a wide variation of skills and experiences you've had to date, and a lot of traveling. Is that something that's ever bothered you, being away from home and traveling all around the globe?
So when I completed my trade training, I moved to Germany. I was 19 years old. And then I spent 6 years in Germany. Granted, as a kid, I lived in Germany and Holland a couple of times. The countries are beautiful, really, really well kept. The locals are really, really nice, supportive of the military. I remember living in Germany when England beat the Germans 5-1, and it wasn't just the Brits that were singing "It's Coming Home," the Germans were singing as well. So everywhere we go, you know, it's great. There hasn't been any country that I've been to where I thought, you know what, I don't like it here. Certainly as I got a little bit older, and then I was fortunate enough that I didn't get married until after most of my traveling. I didn't have children until after most of my traveling. And then when we did have to move back to Germany, I got to move the family with me. So again, they had the opportunity to go and to see different places and different cultures, albeit as very young age. Jacob was born in Germany. So yeah, not really too much of an issue living abroad, to be honest.
Quite settled now, close to home as you enter resettlement, and obviously look to transition into civilian life. More recently, you've been taking the path of football coaching. When did you first get into coaching, Dave, and what was it that sort of drew you in? As you mentioned, you've played football at a good level. So why and when the transition to coaching?
So, as with every young boy that ever grew up, and girls nowadays, we all wanted to kick a football. We all dreamed of being a footballer. Living abroad, I got to watch my dad play football quite a bit. He played in goal for the army. He had a trial with MVV Maastricht in Holland, but unfortunately he said he was a little bit too old and he turned the opportunity down. And then I started to develop a love for the game and wanted to play. I'll put the record straight now. Quite early on, I wasn't very good, but I was an individual that always wanted to play. And, you know, if you put in the attitude and the effort and you play with players that just want to play the game, you form a love for the game. I never really got coached myself. So maybe as a kid, if I was coached, I might have played to a better standard. Okay. I might have been able to do a little bit more, but I was never coached. And then when we moved to Germany as a youngster, 7 Signal Regiment, they had arguably the best team in the army. And by that, I mean that some of the players that came in, they were ex-professional at youth level, or some of them signed pro contracts, but it never quite worked out. They play semi-professional football. And they were really, really good to be around. And because of how successful they were coached. So I played for the B team, and we had a little bit of coaching, and that's where we first saw how having a coach, having a mentor can actually develop a player, can actually develop a team, and a team can move forward. So, as I say, I've played for every unit that I've ever been to. And then in 2013, I decided that I would give the referee course a go. I'd give my level 1 coaching a go. And I actually really enjoyed the level 1 coaching. So I went on to the level 2 a year later. My referee career wasn't too bad. I got promoted a couple of times. I ran the line, and I was an assistant referee in the FA Cup and the FA Vars in the prelim rounds. But then I refereed a game between 2 very, very good teams with very, very good players. And I saw the other side of the refereeing, where you make a bad decision and you've got to live with it. And not to say that I didn't enjoy the refereeing, I enjoyed the coaching more. Yeah. So, had the opportunity to coach the Royal Signals ladies team. And again, the ladies were bang on. They were really, really enthusiastic. They were like sponges. They wanted to learn. They wanted to develop. And actually watching them grow, knowing that a little bit of input from me, but a lot of input from them, and seeing them grow and develop actually made it all worthwhile. And that's where my coaching journey really, really started. And I will always be grateful for that. And, you know, in 10, 15, 20 years' time, if I have another career in football, I can look back and say that it started while I was in the army with that group of girls.
Really, really interesting there. That again, you've said you looked at the refereeing pathway first, and quickly decided it was going to be the coaching path you went down. The skills that you've learned through your military career over the last sort of 20 years, Dave, have they helped you as a coach? And if so, what skills would you say you've picked up?
Certainly, power of communication is definitely one. In everyday life, we need to communicate, whether that's orally, verbally, whether it's looking at somebody's body language. You've got to be able to communicate. So being a communication systems operator, and having a communications background and learning from other people how they communicate, I think is probably the biggest key skill that I've learned. But from there, we're disciplined, we're fit, we're enthusiastic, we're motivated, we're well organised, we're well drilled. Our planning skills are put to the test. We go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Our attention to detail is very, very high. So all of them skills that we have to do in the military are easily transferable over to putting it into a coaching session. So,
fantastic. I know the Army have got their solid C, and for the listeners out there, are you able to just give us an insight into what that is and how they transfer to civilian life?
Yeah, so we live by our core values and standards. Everything we do has got to be lawful. We need to apply the appropriate behaviour, and we need to be totally professional. But the 6 core values that we live by, you just mentioned solid C. I put them in alphabetical order, so we'll go with courage first. To have the moral courage, the physical courage, do what's right. To go ahead and go and do something that you wouldn't normally do. To be disciplined, self-disciplined, getting out of bed in the morning, making your bed, ironing your kit, everything that breeds just the start of a good day. Integrity, we've got to be honest to ourselves, we've got to be honest with each other. Loyalty, clearly we're all loyal to each other, loyal to Queen and country. Respectful, as you know, that we come from a very diverse background. Everybody comes from different areas. We've come from all walks of life. So respectful to each other, but also to ourselves. And I think for me, the biggest one is selfless commitment, putting other people first. And that it reigns true in a football team with a coaching session. It's all about the players. It's not about you. It's not about your ego or where you want to go. You deal with what you've got in front of you, and as long as you put the players first, everybody will be rewarded.
It's interesting. One of the things I've taken from that, as you mentioned, that it's not about you as the coach, and I suppose it's quite easy for us as coaches to let our ego get in the way of what's in front of us. And as you say, it isn't about us. It's about what we can do for the players and develop them. Would you agree as such?
Yes, certainly. We've got to be able to create an environment for the players and staff. If you create an environment that they want to be there, and you instill a belief to them that they can go out and achieve anything they put their mind to, then they'll work for you. And if you educate them, that you'll be dedicated, you'll be committed, and they do exactly the same, then the world's your oyster, and you can only move forward from there.
I love that, and I think, as we mentioned, solid C, as I referred to, it's something that sticks with you for life, especially when you've had a career in the military. For me, just from my experience, when I first made the transition, it was very easy to fall into the trap to assume that as an ex-military man or current military man or woman, you're very militant in your coaching style and command. Would you say that it's quite easy to get that misconception, or would you say there's other skills that come into play?
I would certainly say that when I started my coaching journey, because I was working in a phase 1 environment, a phase 2 environment, because some of the things that we have to do, some of the decisions we have to make in some respects, not all, but in some, you live by life and death. And if you make the wrong decision, you've got to be able to live with it. So moving away from that, yes, you've got to be very command in the military. And as I said, I started off very command, but then as I started to do my youth award modules, and I went to do them with the Royal Air Force, the lead instructor was ex-Royal Air Force. He's now working with Oxfordshire FA. He could clearly tell that I'd come from that background, phase 1 training, where I stand and bark, and you've got to put a little bit of fear into the recruits and discipline them. But he was very much, why don't you try and try and get them to, put the onus on them instead of you telling them what to do, get them to try and do other things. So yeah, I think it started off very much command, but then it went into a little bit of trial and error, get them to give it a go, because ultimately they're all human. They will make mistakes, but they don't make mistakes on purpose. And then a little bit of guided discovery as well. So once they have done something, ask them why they've done it. And then if they explain why they've done it, then you can then go in and give them an opportunity to say, what if you did it this way? Mm-hmm. Or why don't you try this? And then they will then again go out and be the decision makers. And again, they will live by their decisions. And in some ways it will pay off, in some ways it won't. But yeah, very much command to start with. But another key skill that you learn in the army is to be adaptable. Yeah. And it's just the same on a football pitch. You've got to be able to adapt with your surroundings and with the people that you've got in front of you.
You mentioned there being adaptable. So my question on those interventions would be, can interventions as a coach depend on the team that you're coaching and the environment?
Of course it can. We're not all blessed like some of the professional coaches that we see in today's game. So, for example, Pep Guardiola, he inherited a Barcelona team that was very, very good, arguably one of the best in Europe at the time. He still would have had to have adapted his coaching style. He would have had to get some of the players to adapt to the way that he wanted to play. And then he would have gone to Bayern Munich and again inherited a very good team. Whereas with us, we don't know what we're going to get. We could have different levels of player. We could have players from different backgrounds. We could have players with different personal circumstances that might affect them week in, week out. So there's no point in going in like a bull in a china shop and just being very much command, because it might work for some, it won't work for others. For others, you might want to go and be disappointed dad. And it's up to you. You've got to be adaptable. You've got to know your players. And if you get to know your players, you'll be able to work out what style suits you, what style suits the player. And then ultimately you'll be able to get or get better results.
You allude there of knowing your players. And would you say that there's a right or wrong way to intervene in a session? Is as I mentioned, a right way to do it, or does it depend?
I think it would depend. Who's going to say to somebody like Jurgen Klopp, if he doesn't see something that's going right in a training session, that he doesn't stop the whole thing and then is command with all of his players? Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to tell him he's right or wrong because of the results that they produce on the pitch. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he might just stand there and let 5, 6, 7 mistakes go, because he knows that them players will know that they've made a mistake and they will try their hardest to try and rectify that mistake. And if he goes in or pulls them to the side and then has a chat with them, it might motivate them, it might demotivate them. So there's no right or wrong. There's no best time to do it. There's no worst time to do it. I think it's just going to be a case of reacting on the ground. and dealing with the situation you best see it.
Yeah, I suppose good observation skills are going to put pay to that as well, and help decide on those interventions, along with, as you mentioned there, knowing your players. Dave, you mentioned you started sort of your coaching pathway with the ladies. Have you had, is it mainly military sort of teams that you've coached, or have you had any experience of whilst serving coaching sort of civilian teams outside of that?
So I was very fortunate to take the ladies team on. I was with them for 2 years. When I took them on, first of all, I think they finished bottom of the league with 1 point. We got some players in. We worked with the players. It was a great environment to be in. And then the next season, we got to a cup semi-final, finished fourth in the league, and did really, really well. And whilst I was working with the ladies, I also did the Army Football Roadshow, where we went around the country, doing a little bit of community engagement with professional clubs all around the country, and doing a little bit of military type assault course stuff, and putting the children through their paces during the school summer holidays. And I was able to meet a few people at Stoke City, and we had the opportunity to let our ladies team take on the Stoke City ladies at what would have been the Britannia at the time. Very good game, clearly a different touch of class from our opposition, but a great experience. And then from there, I had the opportunity to go and work with the Stoke ladies for a season, and I met Andy Frost. Great guy. I think he works in the academy setup now. He's doing really, really well himself. He gave me the opportunity to go and work with the Stoke ladies, and you know, everybody talks about the women's game, and actually, if they go and watch a ladies' game, go and watch a ladies' training session, they are good. They are tactically and technically very, very good, and it's a great advert for the sport, and the way that it's rising worldwide is testament to what all these ladies put in. So that was a great experience. And then from there, I had the opportunity, a friend of mine was building a team, Stafford United, from nothing. He wanted to, the army had just moved into Stafford, or more units had moved into Stafford, and typically there would be a few frictions where there's a university town, there's the military coming in, there's the local population that are a little bit, surprised at what's going on. And he wanted to make a football team. And we had a 60-40 split of military and civilians. And it actually did really, really well. And he was receiving plaudits from across the city or the town. And everybody was talking about the football and people wanted to get involved. So we did that for a season. But unfortunately, I had to leave that because I was then going through my UEFA B. Personal circumstance for me had changed. So there was a lot going on. So I ended up having a little bit of a break from the game. And then a little bit of reinvigoration. I had the opportunity to work with the Army Under-23s development squad. So the Army team are the best players in the Army. Some of them will play semi-professional football at a weekend away from the service. Some of them will have had professional contracts and then unfortunately got injured or their playing career come to an end, so they joined the Army. And to go and work with the development team to get them into the Army first team was a great opportunity, and Griff and Paul Hughes give me that opportunity. And again, I'll be thankful. And, in 10, 15, 20 years' time, it's all memories, it's all people that we will remember and we'll thank later on in our lives. But, I still remember one of the first training sessions that we had with the under-23s. There was a 17-year-old kid that turned up. What a player. And already at 17, 18 years old, he's already represented the Army team. Wow. He scores worldies from 30 yards out. He's got, great shoulders on him. He's got a sound head, sound mind. and he'll probably go far. And it's because of people like that that I enjoyed the under-23s experience. And he'll still be there for a few years working with Griff and Paul. And then ultimately, you know, we'll see where they develop him and how far they can push him to get him into the Army first team. So that was another great opportunity. And then I had the opportunity to go and work with Port Vale's Academy. Really, really looking forward to that. But then again, unfortunately, due to military career and not unfortunate, I was promoted to Sergeant Major, which meant that I had to move on, and which now got me to go and do my dream job in the military. My time at Port Vale was very short-lived, but hopefully, you never know, in 18 months' time when I leave the military, I might get an opportunity to go back to Port Vale or to somewhere else within an academy and move forward from there.
I can imagine that must have been very frustrating as you've gone through a pathway of working at different levels, different abilities, different sort of age groups, and then to ultimately get what most people see as the pinnacle of football coaching, working in an academy, to be ultimately cut short by, you know, your military career. Now, I know you said you got your dream job, but is that one of the frustrating sides of the military, not being able to sort of plan a long-term development as such outside of the military?
It is frustrating. Of course it's going to be frustrating, but we get frustrations in everyday life. There might be personal circumstance, there might be promotion within something else, there might be an injury. So frustrations are always going to be there. It's what we do to deal with them. Yes, I've worked in the ladies' game in the military, which is a group of ladies that wanted to come together to play football because they enjoyed it. And some of them did get to go and play for the Army first team with the ladies. That's great. I then went to work in what would be described as the professional game with the Stoke ladies. So again, fantastic opportunity. And then working with the men in Civilian Street, where again, just people that want to play football on a Sunday, get together, have a crack with their mates, but actually it's very competitive and they really, really enjoy it. To then Army under-23 development, to the academy, as you quite rightly say, is the pinnacle. But I am a soldier firstly and foremost, and my military career is my number one priority. So I've worked for 20 years to be a sergeant major, to be the senior soldier, to wear that crown on your wrist is something that I've dreamed of for the last 20 years. So there was no way that could be turned down. My military career will come to an end. I will no longer be able to be a soldier, but football will always be there in some way, shape or form. Now, whether I get the opportunity again to go and work in an academy, we'll never know. Whether I go into the pro game, whether I get to go and work with adults in the 11v11 game, whether I go and work with ladies again, we'll never know. We can try and plan and forecast, but we can only see what will happen in the next 18 months to 2 years.
So with 18 months to go, are you sort of getting in the mindset of planning for civilian life, or would you say it's a bit too far away to have anything solid?
No, certainly looking into it. The day job in Pirbright is busy. It's testing, it's challenging. Working with 30 instructors, and at one point we had 220 something recruits in basic training. It keeps you busy.
Yeah.
But there is always on the back of your mind on an evening when you're relaxing, what can you do to develop yourself? What can you do to further yourself? And then where are you going to go when the time comes? So Pirbright will probably be my last posting. I'll only have 3, 4, 5 months left when I leave Pirbright. So I will effectively be a tracksuit soldier, or certainly well into resettlement and networking to see where I can go next. But I've already looked at what I want to do and where I want to go, and personal circumstance is pushing me that way. But again, We will all have frustrations. Something might get in the way of that plan. So time will only tell.
So what's next for your coaching pathway now? Obviously, you're doing a lot of mentoring work and management work, looking after instructors and recruits. When it comes to the coaching, what's next for Dave Tuck?
So I applied for the UEFA A course last year. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, unsuccessful, as I know a lot of people have been. That's not through any fault of our own or any fault of the FA or whatever. It's just a very busy business where people have had careers in football just like I have in the military. So, don't hold any grudges. We'll just go again and see if we can get it done again. If not, there's always the opportunity to look at the Advanced Youth Award module, as I've completed the full Youth Award module previously. You mentioned my coaching and mentoring, leadership and management. So having completed so many courses throughout the Army career and at the stage that I am, I've managed to accrue level 7 and level 6 certificates and diplomas in leadership and management, and level 5 in coaching and mentoring, which aren't on paper degrees, but they are working to the level of degrees. So having leadership and management, coaching and mentoring sitting alongside my UEFA B license can only help and give me something to put down on my CV and see where we go from there. But what I'm looking at doing is supplementing my football coaching with a little bit of fitness. So because I've been in the military for 20 years, we are fit, robust individuals, although my knees wouldn't say that lately. So looking at doing a level 3 in personal training and a level 4 in strength and conditioning.
What are the thoughts in adding that to the bow? And obviously that's a little bit of a different feather in the cap. How would that add value?
Well, certainly if you're a personal trainer, you might be able to give your players personal objectives and give them training programs. You might be able to work with the physio, the strength and conditioning coach within your team, and give them options and get the players where they need to be. The strength and conditioning means that we can then work as a group to make sure that in pre-season we are conditioned, ready to go. During the season, just making sure that we're keeping on top of our fitness, and then again post-season, making sure that we're doing stretching and we're looking after each other and we're looking after ourselves. And I think that it would add to the football coaching side of life. So even if I wasn't able to be a assistant coach, a head coach, I might be able to look at being a strength and conditioning coach. It's just things that add to a training session. You might take the warm-ups, you might take the cool-downs, you might take a session in the middle, or game day, you might be able to do the warm-ups, the cool-downs, and again, offer some value from the touchline. So it's something that I think will add value. I'm sure others might agree. Might be some that would say you may be taking on a little bit too much, but it's what I feel is best and what would give me the best opportunity to work in the game.
I suppose with that, it's going to make you a little bit more employable in terms of that. If you're looking at clubs with, say, a lesser budget and doing a multitude of tasks, you're able to do a couple of roles and be more employable.
Yeah, certainly. Ultimately, the end of the career in the military will come just as I'm turning 40. Still got 25 years left in me, or I'd like to think I have. So you've got to look at future employment, and football, as much as everybody wants to get involved, it's not always going to happen. And as you quite rightly say, you don't know what level you're going to go into. You don't know what club you're going to find yourself in. It may even be that when my son gets a little bit older, he wants to go and play. and then I can coach him. I can then do some fitness with him. I then might get involved in his club and take on a role. It's just something that, just as I did 20 years ago when I joined the army, I knew where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be, and it was all about learning. Every day is a school day. You learn on the job, and you see where you go. You've always got dreams and hopes and goals. I've reached them in my military career, so hopefully we'll find one in the future.
You sound certainly very driven in what you want, Dave, and certainly I wish you all the best in getting that. You mentioned, just going back, your level 6 and 7 diplomas in management and leadership. Is that just a military qualification, or is it recognisable outside of the military?
No, it's outside of the military. They're civilian accredited qualifications. So from the Institution of Leadership and Management and the CMI, Chartered Management Institute, they're all civilian qualifications. So again, they'll look great on a CV next to UEFA B license, next to hopefully level 3 personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach, which will ultimately, as you say, make me more employable if there is a job available.
Yeah, not long to go now then for a full 22-year military service, which I've got to say is some achievement, Dave. Where would you like to be in 5 years' time? If you had a crystal ball and you could see yourself, where would you want to be?
So I don't know about 5 years' time. Certainly the North Star, the biggest goal is to be in professional football. What guise that is, I don't really know, whether it be the men's game, the ladies' game, or whether that's in the United Kingdom or the United States. It was always a career, or always a family dream to move out to America. Sadly, personal circumstances have changed, but my family will be moving out to America, so I would like to follow them. So the idea is hopefully going to work in some kind of education, be it college or university, but be the assistant coach or the head coach of the football team, or the soccer team as they say it, and go from there. I went on holiday last year to Florida, and I got in touch with a couple of people with Orlando City, and I had the opportunity to go down and meet the ladies academy director. Watched him put on a couple of sessions, got involved in a couple of sessions, met some of the other coaches, some of them from the UK that had emigrated over to America. So there's certainly opportunity, there's certainly scope. I was impressed with what they had going on. We've kept in touch. He's invited me back out. So there may be an opportunity to go and work in the academy at a professional club in America. So 5 years' time, I'd like to say a coach of an age group within an academy, and then head coach of a college or university football team, soccer team.
Sounds like you've got a semi-solid path as to where you want to go, and I'm sure those that know you, Dave, will be wishing you all the best in that. I'm very conscious I've taken up a lot of your time today, and we always want to finish with something on the PCT podcast, a little bit of a quick fire question round. So I'm sure you've come across a wide variation of characters, shall we say, through your military career and also, you know, your football career to date. Who would you say your best friend in football is?
You're right. We've moved around. We've seen a lot, played a lot. But certainly, I've been coming away from playing and now going into coaching, I met a guy on my B license course, ex-military, got on really well with him. So, we keep in touch quite often. It's you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, mate. It's very kind. Toughest opponent? That could be that you've seen. Obviously, you've had a lot of experience playing, but as a coach, who would you say is the toughest opponent you've come against?
I'm going to go with when I played, and a guy called Sam Agar. So he was on Leeds and Bradford's books, I think, as a youngster. Joined the army. He was combined service level, so effectively the best in the UK Armed Forces. So if you put it into something, it'd probably be Team GB at Olympics. He played centre forward for them. Strong, powerful, played up top. If the ball got to him, it stuck. If you got tight to him, he would turn you. If you give him a bit too much space, he would turn, then take you on. And all you could do was really kick him.
Fair enough. Best trainer?
Probably as a coach, Stafford United, a young lad called Dan Davies, 21 years old, youngest player on the team, and we had 2 teams at the time. Great attitudes, really fit, really wanted to get involved, listened, learnt, asked questions, not just on a training session, but in a game as well. He was very receptive. So, yeah, Dan Davies.
Worst dressed teammate?
To be honest, can't really answer that one, only because being in the military, the amount of times that we would work until 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then kick-off would be at 2. People would turn up in uniform. They'd turn up in shorts, T-shirts and flip-flops. They might turn up in a tracksuit. So, yeah, military footballers.
Worst taste in music?
Probably me. I like chill-out music, so I would go with a little bit of Lionel Richie, just to settle the mood, and then you go out onto the football pitch and then you're entering the battlefield, whereas some people would like to dance around thinking they're in Ibiza and then take the party to the football pitch. And yeah, so probably me.
It's quite honest and quite humble. Best player that you've played with or coached?
Best player I've ever played with would be a guy called Joey Collins. He played at a very, very high standard before he joined the army. Matt Letitia has referenced him in a book. When I was a youngster, turning up at 7 Signal Regiment, where the best team were, he was without doubt the best player on the park. He would do his job. He knew his job inside out. He would then, I remember playing in a game once where I got drafted up, and he would tell me where I needed to be. Okay. He broke his leg really, really badly, got told he'd never play again or never walk properly again, and he overcome adversity. And he played last year and won I think it was the Army, best team in the Army, played the best team in the Army Reserve. He was playing in the Army Reserve team. They won the competition. Yeah, he could still put a pair of boots on and put quite a few people to shame. And also he's just about to finish his A license. So he's gone from being a player at a young age, military career, to now trying to make something for himself in the football world as well. So yeah, very good.
Good stuff. Finally, is there anybody you would recommend or you'd like to hear us speak with on the podcast?
I've been looking at Facebook and Twitter quite a lot recently, and there's a guy called Matt Ward. He's published a book called Zero to Professional in 4 years. I'm in the middle of reading that. Yeah. It seems that he has overcome a few frustrations, a bit of adversity, and like all of us has had a dream in coaching, and it seems to have paid off from him. So maybe to get his outlook on life and how he's managed to get there. And yeah, I think he'd be good for you to have a chat with.
I speak with Matt quite often, and I know he supports British coaches abroad through the British Football Coaching Network online. So yeah, I think it'd be very interesting to have Matt on. Dave, look, it's always great chewing the fat with you, mate, especially when it's about football. I just want to say thank you. I know you're busy with your military career and looking after your staff, so thank you for taking the time to speak to us. I wish you all the success, not only in your military career, but moving forward in your football career, mate, and hope you and the kids stay safe.
Thank you, pal. Good luck and all the best in what you're doing with PCT coaching. It looks great from the outside, and just want to say this is a great idea to get coaches in to have a chat with them. It's an uncertain time. It's great that people get to talk about football because it distracts them from other things. And obviously it allows people to see the views of other people. And, if people take something away from my chat or from some of the other guests that you get on and it helps them in their career, then you've done a great thing. Cheers, pal.
Yeah, let's hope we can add some value, and again, people from all walks of life and experiences, and we can all help each other. Great stuff. Dave, look, it's been a pleasure, mate, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Cheers, pal. Thank you. Take care.
Having heard David's story, if a career in the army is something you wish to pursue, you can find out more by visiting www.army.mod.uk. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the content that we're trying to bring to you. Don't forget, new episodes will be released every Monday. You can find us on the iTunes Store, Spotify, and if you want to see the video, you can see it on our YouTube channel, PCT Football Coaching.